God, is it pronounced Hagen or Hagen?
Um,
It's a
yeah, I would go
Germanic
Hagen.
name.
If I had
Let's
to
go with
say,
Hagen.
yes. Now,
So
speaking
Hagen
of
is.
fire,
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
speaking of fire, that's
Yeah.
what you were
Speaking of
saying there.
fire, yep. So Hagen was supposedly the greatest of the forgers, the son of Albrecht, the and the one who betrayed Siegfried. He is the one who pretended to ride through the Ring of Fire to win Brunhilde's affection, and he's the one who drowned in water. Which we again kind of see this with his powers, because in Hagen's powers, he has the ability to control heat and cold, which is brilliant if you think about it. The two things that cause his downfall, the heat of the Ring of Flames and the cold of the water, and this version from Saint Seiya can control both.
That's just poetry, really.
It is poetry, really. That is brilliant. Unfortunately, it did not save him from getting his ass kicked by the Saints of Athena. Who knew?
No, no. Yes, this isn't.
Now,
But there's
I
also
do
speaking
like how
of.
they also get. Oh, go ahead.
Definitely also see some sort of imagery of a horse.
Yeah, now the horse is actually really interesting because Hagen had a great war horse, like even better than Siegfried's steed, which was one of his redeeming qualities as a spearman. Because
Yes.
as a spearman, you have to have a really good horse if you want to fight.
Hmm.
Now, now his horse is a very important in the myth because it allows him to outpace Siegfried to trick him, which is part of the whole blah 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 dramatic irony. You know how it works. And it's also but it's also really sad because that horse actually drowned with him, which I always found really sad in the play because I'm like, the horse didn't do anything. Why does the horse have to die?
Yeah. It's
But
fortunate.
yeah, so again, I really like this because once again they did not have to reference the myth so heavily, but we see so many images from it that make sense when you think about how it worked in the play and in the myth and the mythology and all of that.
Now, looking at his armor, the horse
And
is literally on his arm.
yeah.
You can see it right now. So that's a
I
hard
guess
reference.
oh yeah, that's a hard reference right there. So the tricky so the next easiest one we can talk about is uh Thor.
Oh yeah.
Look, his name's Thor and he's the size of New Mexico. You know exactly who they're referencing.
But by the way, I actually did not notice his size until seeing him in Saint Seiya Soul to Soul. He is
Oh yeah. And then you're just like,
ginormous.
right? This man is how old? Like officially, okay, we know that the official heights, like the official ages, are bullshit. But so whatever I'm about to say, just consider that a low ball. So whatever I'm about to say. So this man is officially listed as 8 foot. No, no. On second thought, I think the official ages might be right for once. This man is listed as 8'6", 265 centimeters. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. 8'6", 485 pounds. Now, usually I'm the first person to say, yeah, ignore the official stuff, but that seems right.
Yeah, the 76ers could have used him tonight.
Oh yeah. That man is so big that if he was in WWE, he would make Andre the Giant look like Rey Mysterio.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure Vince would just say, "Yeah, he's 9 foot tall. We're going 9 foot tall."
Yeah. All right. So yeah. So him's a big dude. I think the naming the attack Titanic Hercules is because, and this is going to be complicated, when the Romans started getting introduced to Germanic mythology, ro- they would often synchronize Germanic, Germanic and Norse gods with Roman gods. So one of the people that they would synchronize was Thor would synchronize with Hercules. So I think naming his attack Titanic Hercules is a reference to that.
Exactly.
Now this is just my oh,
Just
go
asking
ahead.
you to guess.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Like knowing the history it makes sense.
Yes. Now
The
here's the.
weird
Go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. No, you're about to say something.
I would say a reference that I see, and there really could have just been an infinite number of references. But
Yeah.
the reference they have is of course, a snake.
Yep, that makes sense too, because Thor's greatest arch enemy was Jormungandr, the world serpent. So it makes sense that somebody whose power is based on her, who is based on Thor, would have the armor of the world serpent to protect them. I am sure I mispronounced Jormungandr, but I am doing my best with these Germanic names.
Well, I'm sure better than most people watching, so it's okay.
Right. Now, another thing that we notice is he has two battle axes, but he calls them Mjolnir. Mjolnir is a hammer, but the man is 8'6". He can call it whatever he wants.
Like, good enough. It's close enough.
He- exactly, just like okay,
It's also the clearest sign that no, these aren't literally the mythological characters.
oh no,
they're just the guys the
these
author
are
representing
human. Yeah, yeah, these are just humans, really, really powerful humans who have mythological powers. They're not literally Thor, Siegfried, blah 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 blah.
them.
Now, another thing we notice about one of the things that I noticed is that they gave him white hair, which is weird because Thor is traditionally in the myths a redhead. But they did do something really cool that does reference the myth. When Seiya kills Gamma Fecta Thor, or Fecta Gamma Thor, or whatever way those two words are supposed to be arranged. Notice Thor takes a few steps and then dies standing up. This is actually a reference to the myth as well. You see, in mythology, when Thor has his big final battle with Jormungandr during Ragnarok, the end of all things, he kills the serpent, takes 8 steps, and then dies standing up. So, so fact that Gamma Thor taking those steps and then dying standing up while fighting Seiya is a reference to that, which is just such a small, obscure reference that I don't even know why they put it in there.
It's definitely one of those. Okay, what's the coolest thing that we can add that won't cost that much?
Right. Well, like it definitely didn't cost that much because they explicitly show Seiya punching through his god robe, and then when that scene transitions back to him, the hole in him is just gone. So eh, you're like, you couldn't even keep the battle damage on his model.
It was a metaphorical hole through the chest.
A metaphorical hole that caused literal blood in the snow.
It's mythology. You know how it is.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So obviously Thor is one of the easy ones, and then of course we have Fenrir, who do I really need to sit here and insult our audience's intelligence by explaining Fenrir to them?
Fenrir?
His name's
Yeah.
his name's Fenrir, the Great Wolf. He has wolf pattern. He has a wolf pattern claw, and he fights you with with a bunch of wolves he summons.
Um,
The only way the only way to be more clear is if Shiryu killed him by punching him in the mouth the way Fenrir dies in mythology, but Jesus Christ, I don't think I need to explain this one.
yeah, I don't know how much you can really add to here.
Yeah. We don't need to
Even
be
his
here.
cloth is just like, yeah,
It's the wolf. You see it.
his wolf. He's blue. I
Yeah, we got nothing here. But here's the complicated one that I wanted to talk about because this one is super obscure. Like they even like it took me a while to even realize the connection until I looked at the cloths instead of at their names. Sid and Bud, the the tiger god warriors. So at first I was like, tigers. What do I know about tigers in Norse mythology? And I'm like, the names were throwing me off. You have to understand.
hmm
So the names were throwing me off, and then I was like, wait, wait. Instead of focusing on their names, Sid and Bud, what if I focus on what their cloths are based on? And the cloths are based on saber-toothed tigers. Now, follow along with me here.
hmm
The only time we see saber-toothed tigers in Norse mythology are the two great cats who pull the chariot of Freya, the goddess of fertility. And what were the names of those two cats?
I don't know. So tell me.
By and Tregol. Now, look, now if you take Vigol and Tregol and you kind of slur it, and and you kind of slur it, and you kind of slur it and put it through an English accent, what do you get? Sid and Bud. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And then we see a lot of this because not only are they supposed to be the two tigers that pull Freya's chariot, which makes sense if you look at their cloths. Their cloths are obviously saber-toothed tigers. Like it's more noticeable with Bud because his is in white, so you see the tiger pattern a lot better with Bud than with Sid's green and blue, but it's still pretty obvious.
hmm
But then it makes even more sense as you realize their role. They are the one is the shadow of the other. They are the twin guardians of Asgard and the ambassadors of Asgard who do Hilda's dirty work, where Hilda in the story is pulling double duty as Hilda, the maiden from mythology, and Freya. So once again, we get another one of these references. And then Sid and Bud with their tiger claw and all that stuff makes even more sense now. That was a really deep cut for no apparent reason because they knew. I don't think anyone in Japan or America would have clicked that right off the bat.
No, that was definitely a little puzzle to solve. Even for you.
That was specifically for me.
Now,
Like,
is there? I believe that's the last God Warrior, right?
yeah, that's all the God
Those,
Warriors. There's not a lot of them. They only appeared in like one saga and they died pretty much immediately.
yes, though immediately, but it was actually it's a really long arc actually.
It is actually a really long arc. I'm just being snarky. But yeah,
Now,
there's not like we could go some more over some of their techniques, but most of their techniques are pretty on the nose. I've already explained the most interesting ones.
yeah, we don't need to
Uh,
know much about uh, Thor's X hammer thing. We get the gist of
yeah,
it.
it's like
I was going to ask you, is there
we get it.
anything
It's
worth noting about the rings and the
thank you. I've been meaning to talk about it. So the ring that Hilda uses is also a reference to Des Nibelung, the Ring of the Nibelung, the saga of the Nibelungs. I am getting really sick of saying that word. But So the reason why it is cursed and evil is because, of course, it is. But in the original myth, the reason why the ring was cursed was because after it was stolen from the dwarves or the dark elves or however you want to say it, it was cursed by his spirit to always bring tragedy until it is returned. And then through this curse, through this tragedy, it would control the bearer, driving them further and further into either despair or depravity or simply tragedy. It ends with when Siegfried, the greatest hero of German mythology, gets it. He still ends up losing his memory, betraying his wife Brunhild, who was a Valkyrie. And for those of you who don't know anything about mythology, do not piss off Valkyries. Not a good plan.
Now,
It ends up with him, yeah, and then him being killed by his best friend, as we mentioned before, and then his wife literally burning herself. Well, not his wife, Brunhild, his first wife, not the second wife, Hilda. But in either way, Brunhild burning herself alive on her funeral pyre. Yeah, real big tragedy is what I'm saying. And this ring being a cursed artifact from an angry god. Wow, that is not even subtle. Oh my god, it's actually called the Nibelung ring. It's actually called the Nibelung ring. The
yeah, it is. It,
reference is just super clear there. Oh yeah. I just like as we're speaking, like there's no way they named it the Nibelung. Oh, they called it the Nibelung. They called it the Nibelungen ring.
like, yeah, you get it. You,
Yeah. Well, like they added the en, but I'm just like that doesn't it doesn't stop it. Like it's still a really obvious reference. So another thing is Hilda herself is actually based. So while we're talking about them, Hilda herself is actually based on Brunhilde, who is, as I mentioned before, the wife of Siegfried, which explains why her and Siegfried had, all that obvious unresolved tension, much like Seiya and Sayori. But Siegfried died, as I mentioned before.
R.I.P.
Yeah,
Now, it,
rest easy.
yes, you remember the Valkyries? It just hit me. There actually is no like reference to the Valkyries here in the arc.
That is weird, and they even have Odin in it. So like they reference Odin, they reference some of the Norse gods, but they don't reference the Valkyries at all. And you think in a place literally called Asgard, there'd be at least a few Valkyries. In
No,
fact, I don't think we get any reference to the Valkyries in any version of the God Warrior arcs.
there is technically, I believe, three either characters or references that also connect to the Blue Warriors in Saint Seiya Online.
Ah, Saint Seiya
Yeah,
Online. See,
that's
I
a
haven't played that, so
that's a deep cut. You gotta that's what you gotta look for.
yeah, you gotta go deep underground to find that one. But yeah, so you think, but I'm just saying, you think like you think that'd be well, besides Brunhilde, who is the only representation of Valkyries, and she goes insane. I don't think we ever get any reference to them in any of the arcs. Like, there's no Valkyrie warriors, which is too bad because we get satellites and in Next Dimension. The satellites are kind of cool
Yeah.
in
Well,
small doses.
well, well. Like I say, might be material in the future.
Yeah.
Though I'm not sure.
It
Do they actually fight in any kind of story?
Oh yeah, the Valkyries they throw down. Not only do they are the warrior maidens of Odin and Freya. Their job is to throw down as well as bring dead souls to Odin or Freya so that they can go to one of those two afterlives, to prepare for Ragnarok.
And I believe the story begins with almost something like a freeze Ragnarok type thing going
Yep, a complete ice age, the last winter, which has a name in Norse that I can't pronounce, and I'm not going to try to.
on. And I guess one more thing. What, which eye is uh Odin's eye patch on, or which eye is did he get taken from? Left or right?
I feel like it's the right. Yeah, yeah, it is definitely the right eye because the right eye represents the because he created his right eye, which is a strong eye. He's right-handed, so yeah, it is his right eye that he traded for power.
Yeah, that's definitely something I always notice because they use the left eye in our statues and imagery for the anime
Yeah,
version.
that is weird. It should be the right eye because in Norse mythology, your right eye was considered part of the key to your soul.
Hmm.
Though there is art depicting the left eye. There is some art
Okay.
depicting the left eye. Like I feel like it should be the right eye because he was right-handed. Whenever we see him with his spear, he's carrying his spear in his right hand. So it makes a lot more sense for him to lose his strong eye, right?
Yeah. Man, me. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Only
And
left.
according
Go
to a
ahead.
lot of mythology experts I've read about, such as Freya Aswyn, they also think think he would have sacrificed his right eye, but less for my reasoning of it's a strong eye and more because they believe it would be a reference to him giving up linear logical thinking for more creative, mystical thinking, which is another really good which is another really good point, but
So most likely the right eye, but doing the left eye probably isn't that egregious.
it just makes it look a little bit cooler, I guess. Like I guess just look having a missing left eye is just cooler looking and it fits their aesthetics better sometimes.
Yes. And the only thing I see about Odin is he does have okay, the sword, the shield, and the belt.
Oh yeah. All right. So Odin. So that's for the Odin sapphires, right? The sword, shield, and belt.
Hmm.
Okay. This is complicated. So obviously, traditionally, Odin's main weapon is his spear, Gungnir, which I actually pronounced right for once. However, he also gave a sword, and that is the sword that we see in Saint Seiya.
Oh, that's
The
part of the
sword,
God Warrior armor.
yep, the sword that we see in the God Warrior armor is uh, hold on. I am going to pronounce this right on the first time. So when so, so the sword is, I believe, Balmung, which is the sword that Odin gave to Sigurd, which Siegfried eventually reforged to slay Fafnir. So it makes complete and total sense for it to be Balmung, also sometimes called Nothung, because if it just wouldn't be a good legend if they didn't have 15 different names for the same weapon. The shield's just a shield. He just sometimes has a shield. Doesn't even get a name.
So the shield is pretty much just there for decoration.
It's a shield. It's
Yeah.
it's there because every warrior should have a shield.
And as far as I'm aware of, that's about everything. Any
Yeah,
last
that
minute
that
thoughts?
should be everything.
Yeah, you shot first.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The Asgard arc is one of the best fillers I've ever seen. I put it up there. like in all of anime. I put it up there with the Garlic Jr. saga from the original Dragon Ball as a filler arc that should be canon. The only downside to it is that it makes Poseidon even more of a douchebag and kind of raises the question of, wait, how awake was Poseidon at that point?
Exactly.
But we're gonna ignore that because because it asks some really good questions.
Yes. It it's not a smooth transition to Poseidon arc. Wait a minute.
It is not, but we are going to roll with it anyway because it was fun.
Yes, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah. But
Fun,
wait. Actually, I do
negative.
have one more reference. I do have one more reference in the Odin robe. I just remembered.
Go ahead.
Boom. Because I was talking about Sigurd and Graham, and I just remembered it. If we look at the Odin robe, you see that the sword is planted in the Odin robe. A lot of people think this is a reference to King Arthur, and to those people, you are on the right track, but you're wrong. It's actually a reference to the story of Sigurd, also known as Siegfried, where Odin shoves a special sword into a tree that can only be removed by Sigurd's son Siegfried, or in the original story, Sigmund's son Sigurd. But then the Germans mix up all the names.
Well, all right then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that feels very important to note that because I know people will be in the comments like, "Oh, you missed this reference. You missed this reference."
Well,
It's gonna
no stone
stop
unturned.
them right there. Yeah, yeah. Also, hot take, say it looks better in the Odin robe than Ioli did.
You know, I feel like if I remember right, I only had like two forms in the own rule or something like that.
Yeah, 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 it was like the normal crystal, and then he made it glow gold, and I'm like, turn it back to to the blue crystal. It actually looks better as the blue icy crystal. Why did you do this?
Uh,
You didn't make it. Not everything needs to be gold. Some things don't look good in gold.
at least not crystals.
Exactly. Like, no, no, it doesn't work. But yeah, I think that's everything. I really, like I said, I really like the Asgard arc. I feel like it had a lot of really good questions, and it raised a lot of really good moral questions that our saints had to deal with once they realized that the people they're killing weren't actually evil; they were just being manipulated. And they're like, "Man, I feel really bad about all the bodies we just left in our wake." Which is like one of the only few times you realize just how much the heroes, the saints kill. Because this is the one time they're like, "Oh my God, we feel really bad about this." Everyone else is just like, "Meh."
Yes, I do notice that since that saying the boys they really don't have any problem killing people
Oh
when they feel like they
nope.
need to.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like if you actually look at Saint Seiya from an objective point of view, it doesn't really come up until the Hades arc, where Hades starts bringing back all their dead enemies. Then you're just like, "Wow," because you see the Saint graveyard, and you're just like, "Wow." Saying his friends really did put a lot of people in the dirt.
Oh yeah, oh, yeah. There's no knockouts. There's not a lot of knockouts. It's Saint Seiya. It's just you're getting
Just hey, is he still alive? Look, like people be looking at Saint saying like, okay, his eyes are open. That means he's still alive, right? No,
nah.
no.
Wait, I think there was one Silver Saint that could have been alive that I don't think we even saw dying. But then you see his grave. Like, you know, he got it too.
Yeah,
Messed
yeah,
up,
yeah.
but he got it.
Yeah. Like I remember debating if Crow Jamian survived that fall off the cliff, and then we're like, well, we never see him actually dead, and then in the Hades arc we see his grave, and we're like, oh, okay, so that answers that question.
Yeah, yeah. I think there was only like one moment where you sort of see Seiya holding Misty's body.
Yeah,
Like that was a moment
that's how
where
we
go ahead.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. We knew for a fact Missy was dead, and then Whale Morris, we don't actually see him die. We just kind of assumed he was knocked out, and then Oh, nope, nope. There's his grave.
Yeah. I say that missed one was probably the only one I could think of where Seiya just went, well, that's kind of a shame actually. Kind
Yeah,
of a
yeah.
shame we had
That
to
was the
end
only one to say I felt bad about it. He was like, you did not have to die, Misty. Let me just put
like
you right here. Sorry.
like I guess they were just following orders really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then it's crazy because after says that for Misty, he just immediately goes back to killing Silver Saints. It was like, wow, you guys didn't ask for this any more than we did. You're just following your own view of justice. Is it really right to take their lives? Hmm. I'll worry about that later. Come back here. But yeah, like I said, but in the Asgard arc, we see the Saints actually deal with those questions. Like each time they kill one of the Asgardians, they feel terrible about it. When Shiryu kills Fenrir, he feels horrible about it. When Seiya kills Thor, you actually see Seiya depressed.
Yeah, that
And they're
definitely.
just like,
Go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
Now you go
No,
ahead.
no, I was just saying.
I was just
No,
saying
no, I
like
wasn't
I was
saying
just
anything.
going to add on like yeah, there's definitely an element that they added on to like oh well is it completely okay to just annihilate these guys in front of us?
Yeah, yeah. And then and which I feel like that leads into the Poseidon arc a little bit better because if you notice in the Poseidon arc, they were literally begging the mariners, please don't make me kill you. Please don't make me kill you. And of course, Shin was going to do that anyway, but it was really surprising seeing it come from Seiya and Shiryu and Hyoga. And
Yes, because
again, Hyoga has the excuse because that was his childhood friend, but Seiya and Shiryu were just like, please stay down. Please don't make me kill you.
I think it's in the manga it definitely shows that this they felt after the sanctuary they felt they were easily superior to all of Poseidon's warriors. So
Which
I
they
think that
were.
yeah, pretty much. So like we don't
That's
have
an
to do
element of it
this.
too. Exactly. So that's an element of it too. Is like, please surrender. We don't have to do this. You don't have to die today. Look, and then in the anime, since the of course in the anime canon, they go literally right from Asgard and then swim to Atlantis. They're like, look, we just killed like 8 people today. Haven't enough people died? You can just lay down. Which for the record is a massive stamina feat if you think about it for the Bronze Boys.
Oh
Because
yeah,
they
they
literally go right from one fight to another.
and just keep that cosmos burning.
Yep. But yeah, so that's the all the mythological stuff I wanted to talk about. If we had time, I would get into Soul of Gold and the movie version with Heimdall, Fenrir. Oh my God, they named the guy. They just named this guy Midgard. I was just going to rant about that. I could just have a whole rant about that. How that's supposed to be a name. That's supposed to be the name of a place, not the name of a person. But I am going to do better than that.
Yes. Plus, I haven't seen the movie in forever.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
This was great. Though
This
I
was some
feel
fun.
I feel like we're more than prepared in the future to do the what is it called? The gladiators. Well,
The gladiators. When
yeah.
we get to them, we're going to get to them.
Only about half of them had an importance, but there's enough there to work with.
Yeah, yeah. Enough of them that we can have a whole video on them.
Mhm.
I actually kind of love the gladiators because they tie more to swords and weapons than to full on mythology. So you gotta figure out who they are from the weapon instead of from the myth they're taking it from, which is
That
going to be fun because we get to talk about both the person that they're channeling and the weapon that they're channeling.
that actually is pretty perfect, because that is pretty much the one of the things that makes them unique is how they use their weapons and how and the reference to it.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be so much fun when we get to that.
Indeed.
I promise. I make no promises, but I will at least try not to rant too much on the ones where the weapon comes from someone I hate, specifically Lancelot.
Okay, but we'll get to that when we can.
We
But
will.
for
All
now,
right.
thank you everyone. As always, please like, sub, hit the bell. Later.
Later days.